She asked for space. I gave it to her. Then I discovered what she was really doing with that space, and suddenly she didn't want space anymore. My name's Connor. I'm 34, and this is the story of how respecting someone's boundaries taught me the most valuable lesson about relationships I've ever learned. What started as a simple request for space turned into the most revealing experience of my life. If you've ever wondered what happens when you actually give someone the space they ask for, this story will change how you see boundaries forever. Melissa and I had been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months. We lived in my house, a modest 3-bedroom I'd been paying down for 6 years in a decent neighborhood outside the city. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. The mortgage was manageable, and I'd worked hard to build something stable. She'd moved in 2 years ago, and for the most part, things had been solid. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue. She was funny, ambitious, worked in marketing for a mid-sized firm downtown. The relationship progressed naturally. Dating, moving in together, getting engaged last summer. I thought we were building something real together. The distance started about a month before everything went down. Little things at first that I probably should have paid more attention to. Longer hours at work became the norm. Phone face down on the table during dinner, sudden interest in fitness and new clothes. She started talking about finding herself and personal growth. Classic signs if you know what to look for, but I trusted her. We were planning a wedding, for crying out loud. I'd already invested about $12,000 in wedding deposits by that point. Venue, photographer, caterer. Real money that represented our shared future, or so I thought. The guest list was finalized, invitations were ordered, and we'd set the date for September. The morning it all started, I was in the kitchen making coffee before work. Construction management doesn't allow for sleeping in, so I'm usually up by 6:30 sharp. Melissa was still in bed, which had become normal lately. Her marketing job had flexible hours, and she'd been taking advantage of that more and more recently. Tuesday morning, 7:47 a.m., I'm getting my second cup when my phone buzzes with a text that would change everything. Connor, I'm feeling completely overwhelmed with everything lately. Wedding planning, work stress, family pressure, it's all becoming too much for me to handle. I need some space to clear my head and figure things out. Please don't contact me for a bit. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Hope you understand. I read it twice, then a third time. The words hit different each time, and I could feel something fundamental shifting in my chest. Now, any man who's been around knows what I need space usually means. It's rarely about actually needing space to think. But here's what separates boys from men. When someone tells you they need space, you give them space, not because you're weak or passive, but because you respect their decision enough to take them at their word. My response was simple and direct. Understood, Melissa. Take the time you need. I didn't ask how long, didn't demand explanations, didn't beg her to reconsider or try to talk it through. I simply acknowledged her request and committed to respecting it completely. And then I did something that apparently shocked everyone involved. I actually gave her the space she asked for. No calls, no texts, no driving by her mom's house where she said she'd be staying to think things through. I didn't show up at her work or try to contact her through friends. When someone asks for space, that means no contact. Period. Instead, I focused on what I could control, my own life and well-being. I went to work every day, managing construction crews and keeping projects on schedule. The routine helped keep my mind occupied and prevented me from dwelling on uncertainty. I hit the gym consistently for the first time in months, pushing myself harder than I had in years. Physical exercise became an outlet for the emotional energy I might have otherwise spent worrying about what Melissa was thinking or doing. I caught up with friends I hadn't seen much since getting engaged. It's funny how relationships can isolate you without you realizing it. I'd been so focused on building a future with Melissa that I'd neglected some solid friendships along the way. I worked on projects around the house that I'd been putting off, fixing the deck, organizing the garage, updating some electrical work. Productive activities that gave me a sense of accomplishment and forward progress. Honestly, it felt good to focus on myself again. You don't realize how much mental energy goes toward managing someone else's emotions and needs until you stop doing it. The mental clarity was refreshing. My buddy Jake noticed the change when we grabbed beers that Thursday evening. We'd been friends since college, and he's never been one to sugarcoat observations or avoid difficult conversations. "You seem different, man. More relaxed, more centered," he said, setting down his beer and studying my face. "Melissa's taking some time to figure things out," I told him, keeping my tone neutral. "She needed space to think about things, so I'm giving her exactly what she asked for." Jake raised an eyebrow. He'd been married and divorced, so he had real experience with relationship dynamics and the warning signs that most guys miss. When women say they need space, it usually means they need space to do something they can't do with you around. "I know what it usually means," I said, appreciating his directness. "But until I know for sure what's really going on, I'm taking her at her word and respecting her boundaries completely." Jake nodded, and I could see the respect in his expression. His own divorce had taught him about betrayal and boundary violations. "That's exactly the right approach, Connor. Either she's being honest and will appreciate that you respected her autonomy, or she's not, and you'll discover who she really is when she thinks no one's watching." That conversation stayed with me. Jake understood that respecting someone's stated boundaries isn't weakness. It's the fastest way to learn their true character. 10 days passed. I didn't hear from her once. Not a text, not a call, nothing. No updates, no check-ins, no "how are you doing" messages. Complete radio silence, which is exactly what she'd asked for and exactly what I was providing. Part of me wondered if she was really just processing things, working through whatever was overwhelming her about our future together. But a bigger part, the part that understood human nature and relationship patterns, knew better. 10 days is a long time to not contact your fiancé even once, especially when you live together and share a life. During those 10 days of silence, I started noticing details that revealed how long this had been planned. My credit card statements showed Melissa had been spending more on clothes and beauty treatments, expenses I'd been unconsciously funding while she prepared for her affair. The new workout membership I'd encouraged and paid for? Apparently that's where she'd been getting in shape for Cabo photos. The work dinners that required new outfits, I'd been bankrolling her affair wardrobe without realizing it. Even her sudden interest in expensive skincare and salon treatments made sense now. I'd been financing her transformation into Blake's vacation companion while believing I was supporting my fiancé's self-care journey. The financial manipulation was as calculated as the emotional deception. She'd used my resources to prepare for betraying me, then asked for space to execute the plan without interference. Then, Friday the 13th happened, and fate decided to reveal exactly what kind of space Melissa had been looking for. I was at the construction site during lunch break, sitting in my truck and scrolling Facebook while eating a sandwich. Just mindless scrolling, the kind you do when you need a mental break from work stress and physical labor. That's when a post from Sarah popped up in my feed. Sarah works at Melissa's marketing firm, and we'd hung out a few times at company events and holiday parties. Her post was titled, "Girls' trip to Cabo was absolutely amazing. Sometimes you need to disconnect from everything and find yourself. Cabo life, girls' trip, finding myself." The post had multiple photos from what looked like an expensive resort. Beach shots, pool parties, fancy dinners, sunset cocktails, the kind of trip that costs serious money and requires planning weeks in advance, not something you book spontaneously. That's when I saw her. Melissa. In the third photo, clear as day, undeniable. My stomach dropped like I'd been sucker punched. There she was, the woman who needed space to figure things out during our wedding planning, wrapped around some guy I'd never seen before like they'd been together for years. I stared at my phone screen for probably 30 seconds, not quite believing what I was seeing. But there was no mistaking it. That was definitely Melissa, wearing a bikini I'd never seen before, pressed up against a man who definitely wasn't me. My hands moved faster than my brain could process the betrayal. I screenshotted the photo immediately, then went through the rest of Sarah's posts systematically, saving every image that showed Melissa. The beach photos where his hands were possessively wrapped around her waist and shoulders. The dinner shots where they're feeding each other dessert like newlyweds on their honeymoon. The pool selfies that looked like romantic vacation pictures you'd see in magazines. Multiple photos spanning what looked like at least 3 or 4 days of intimate vacation time together. But the one that hit me like a sledgehammer was a photo of Melissa alone, looking happier and more radiant than I'd seen her in months. Her caption, tagged in the comments section, "Sometimes the best adventures happen when you least expect them." Thank you, Blake, for showing me what I've been missing all along. Here's to new beginnings and authentic living. New chapter, finding myself, Cabo vibes, living authentically. Blake. I stared at that name until it burned permanently into my memory. I sat in my truck for probably 20 minutes, just processing what I'd discovered. This wasn't some spontaneous girls' trip that went sideways or some accidental encounter. This was planned, coordinated, premeditated. The timing was too perfect. Her space request came exactly when she needed to be free for this romantic getaway. I could have called her right then, could have sent angry texts demanding explanations and accountability, could have driven to her mom's house and confronted her when she inevitably returned from her space adventure. But that's not what calm, rational men do when they discover betrayal. Instead, I did what any intelligent guy would do in 2025. I investigated thoroughly and methodically before making any moves. It took me about an hour of focused searching to find everything about Blake Morrison. Social media makes it remarkably easy if you know where to look and what patterns to follow. 38 years old, married, 2 kids, works as a regional sales manager for a software company downtown. His Facebook profile was completely public, apparently because he never thought he'd need to hide anything from the world. It was filled with family photos featuring his wife Kennedy and their twin daughters, Emma and Sophie, both around 8 years old. The recent posts painted a picture of a devoted family man who valued loyalty and commitment. Photos from their last family vacation 6 months ago, showing them at Disney World with the girls. Posts about being blessed with my amazing family and grateful for my wife, who keeps everything together while I travel for work. Posts about family values and the importance of loyalty in marriage and being the man your daughters can look up to. The guy was posting about family values and marital loyalty while he was in Cabo with my fiancée. The hypocrisy was staggering. But what really got me was Kennedy's social media presence. Her Instagram was public with about 2,000 followers. She posted fitness content, family photos, and motivational quotes about marriage and motherhood. Her bio read, "Mom of twins, fitness enthusiast, blessed wife, building a strong family foundation one day at a time." Her most recent post was from 3 days ago. "Missing my husband while he's on his business trip to California. So proud of how hard he works to provide for our family. The girls and I are holding down the fort until daddy gets home. Marriage goals, strong family. Missing him, proud wife." California. He told his wife he was in California on business while he was actually in Cabo with my fiancée, living it up at a luxury resort. She had no idea her husband was betraying their family while she was home with their children, believing his lies about work commitments. I dug deeper into both their social media histories. Blake's LinkedIn showed frequent business travel over the past year, but I cross-referenced the dates with his personal social media posts. The pattern became disturbingly clear. At least 3 other business trips in the past 6 months that lined up perfectly with Melissa working late or having weekend work commitments. This affair had been going on for months, maybe longer. While I was planning our wedding, making deposits, and building our future, she was planning escape routes and romantic getaways with a married father of 2. That night, lying in our bed alone, I realized I'd been mourning a relationship that had ended months ago. I just hadn't been invited to the funeral. Melissa had been living a double life while I planned our wedding, and the woman I thought I knew had never really existed. The space she requested wasn't about figuring anything out. She'd already figured everything out months ago when she started the affair. The space was just to execute her exit strategy without having to look me in the eye while she did it. The facts were crystal clear. Melissa had lied to me about needing space. She'd used that lie to go on a romantic vacation with a married man while I respected her boundaries. Blake had lied to his wife about a business trip to have an affair with my fiancée. Both of them were actively deceiving their partners and destroying their families for selfish gratification. But here's what really crystallized my thinking and determined my next moves. Kennedy Morrison had a fundamental right to know what kind of man she was married to. Just like I had a fundamental right to know what kind of woman I was engaged to. The decision wasn't emotional, it was logical, moral, and strategically sound. Truth is always better than deception, even when truth is painful. Kennedy deserved to make informed decisions about her life and her children's future. She deserved to know that her husband was the kind of man who would lie about business trips to cheat with engaged women. I finished my workday, went home, and spent the evening carefully planning my response. This wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about truth, consequences, and protecting innocent people from ongoing deception. Saturday morning, I sat down at my computer and carefully composed a simple, factual Facebook post. Melissa Patterson, you said you needed space to figure things out while we planned our wedding. I respected that request completely and gave you exactly the space you asked for. I've now discovered that you used that space to vacation in Cabo with Blake Morrison while his wife Kennedy Morrison was home with their children, believing he was on a business trip to California. I believe in honesty and transparency in relationships. Kennedy Morrison deserves to know the truth about how her husband spends his business travel time. I attached the photos from Sarah's post that clearly showed Melissa and Blake together in unmistakably romantic situations. The beach embraces, the intimate dinners, the couple photos that left absolutely no room for misinterpretation or alternative explanations. Then I tagged all three parties: Melissa Patterson, Blake Morrison, and Kennedy Morrison. I posted it at exactly 8:30 a.m. and then set my phone aside and went about my normal Saturday morning routine. What happened next wasn't my responsibility anymore. I'd simply shared the truth and allowed the natural consequences to unfold. By 9:15 a.m., my phone was going crazy with notifications, comments, shares, reactions. The post was spreading through our mutual social circles like wildfire. The first call came at 9:23 a.m. Blake Morrison. I let it go to voicemail, but I listened to his message. Connor, what the hell are you thinking? You need to take that post down right now. This is gonna destroy my marriage, my family, my career. Melissa told me you guys were having serious problems anyway, and we're probably gonna break up soon. This will ruin my entire life. Take it down immediately. Fascinating. Melissa had told him we were having problems and likely to break up. She'd positioned our relationship as essentially over to justify their affair. Classic affair partner manipulation and rationalization. Melissa called next at 9:31 a.m. Her voice was shaking with pure panic. Connor, are you completely insane? What did you do? Kennedy Morrison called me screaming 20 minutes ago. Blake is absolutely freaking out. You've ruined everything. Delete that post right now and tell everyone it was a joke or a misunderstanding. I didn't answer either of them. They'd created this situation with their choices, their lies, and their betrayal. I'd simply revealed the truth they'd been hiding from their partners. The comments on the post started pouring in immediately. Friends expressing shock and support for my situation. People who knew both Melissa and me taking sides and sharing their perspectives. Mutual acquaintances saying they'd suspected something was off with her behavior lately. Several people mentioned they'd noticed changes in her attitude and priorities over the past few months, but hadn't felt comfortable saying anything directly. But the most important message came through Facebook Messenger at 10:15 a.m. from Kennedy Morrison herself. Connor, I don't know you personally, but I want to thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth about my husband's character. Those photos show me everything I need to know about his business trips and his commitment to our family. I'm filing for divorce on Monday morning. You've saved me from wasting more years of my life on a liar and potentially exposing my daughters to his toxic behavior patterns. I wish you strength in moving forward from this betrayal. That message made everything worthwhile. Kennedy deserved better than a husband who would lie about business trips to cheat with engaged women. Her daughters deserved better than growing up thinking their father's deceptive behavior was normal or acceptable in marriage. The panic calls kept coming throughout the day. Blake called 17 times between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. I let every single one go to voicemail, but I listened to them all to understand his complete psychological breakdown. The progression showed exactly how affair partners turn on each other when consequences hit. First few calls were pure anger. Take it down now. This is none of your business. You're destroying my family over your relationship problems. Then desperate bargaining. Connor, please, my wife kicked me out. She took the kids. My company is questioning my expenses. I'll pay you anything, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it takes. But the final call revealed his true character, throwing Melissa completely under the bus. Connor, you have to understand. She told me you were basically broken up. She said she was only staying until the wedding was canceled. This whole thing was her idea. She pursued me. I was just trying to be supportive during her difficult time. Classic. The moment his comfortable life was threatened, he immediately betrayed his affair partner to save himself. The irony was absolutely breathtaking. He was begging me not to destroy his family while he'd been actively destroying it himself for months with his lies, deception, and affairs. Melissa's calls followed a similar psychological pattern, but with more legal threats mixed in. Early calls were pure panic. Connor, this is harassment. This is public humiliation. I'm calling the police. You can't do this to people. Later calls shifted to bargaining. Connor, please, I'm begging you. My boss saw the post. My job is asking questions. Blake's wife is threatening to call my company. We can work this out privately. I'll come home. We'll go to counseling. I'll explain everything. Final calls became threatening. Connor, you're sick. This is revenge. This is stalking behavior. I'm gonna sue you for everything you're worth. My family's lawyers are already getting involved. The progression from panic to bargaining to legal intimidation was completely predictable. When people get caught doing something wrong, they rarely take responsibility. Instead, they attack the person who exposed their behavior. Sunday brought what I call the flying monkeys, the friends and family members who come out of the woodwork to defend the cheater and attack the person who exposed the cheating. Melissa's sister Brooklyn called first thing in the morning. Connor, what you did was cruel and completely unnecessary. Yes, Melissa made a mistake, but you've potentially destroyed multiple lives over a relationship problem that could have been handled privately. Blake has children. Those little girls are going to see this someday. How could you be so heartless and vindictive? My response was calm and factual. Brooklyn, a mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the store. A planned affair involving lies to multiple people over several months is a deliberate choice. Kennedy Morrison deserved to know the truth about her husband's character and behavior. Those little girls deserve to know their mother has integrity and won't accept deception in their family. She hung up on me immediately. I blocked her number. Melissa's best friend Vanessa called next. Connor, you're being petty and vindictive. Melissa is absolutely devastated by what you've done. She never meant for it to go this far with Blake. It was supposed to be just a vacation thing, just some fun before settling down for marriage. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her? She loves you, not him. Vanessa, if your fiancé was in Cabo with a married woman while you planned your wedding, would you want someone to tell you the truth? Or would you rather keep living a lie and planning a marriage based on deception? She couldn't answer that question honestly, so she hung up too. The most revealing call came from Melissa's mother, Carol, who left a voicemail that showed exactly where Melissa learned her toxic patterns of avoiding accountability. Connor, I am absolutely disgusted by your vindictive behavior. Melissa is my daughter, and you've humiliated her publicly for the entire community to see. Yes, she made a poor choice, but that's between you two as a couple. Dragging that man's family into it was completely unnecessary and cruel. You're going to pay for this humiliation. Our family has lawyers, and they're already looking into your actions. The generational enablement was crystal clear. This family had been protecting Melissa from consequences her entire life. No wonder she felt entitled to cheat. and then demand protection from the results. When you raise someone to believe they're never truly responsible for their choices, you create adults who destroy relationships and then blame everyone else for the damage. I blocked all of them. When people show you who they really are through their actions and their responses to natural consequences, believe them completely. Monday morning brought an interesting development at work. I got called into my boss's office at 8:30 a.m. Tom had been my supervisor for 3 years, and we'd always maintained a solid working relationship based on mutual respect. "Connor, I need to talk to you about something," he said, closing his office door for privacy. "Someone called our HR department this morning claiming you're harassing colleagues through social media and might be mentally unstable." I wasn't surprised by this development. Desperate people make desperate moves when they're facing consequences. "Tom, I exposed an affair involving my fiancée and a married man. I posted factual information with photographic evidence to inform the man's wife about his behavior. Everything I posted was completely true and supported by undeniable evidence." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "I figured it was something like that when I saw some of the comments from mutual friends supporting you. The anonymous caller claimed you were stalking and harassing people, but that didn't match the professional, ethical guy I've worked with for 3 years." He'd already made up his mind before I even provided my explanation. "Connor, you did the right thing by telling the truth. That took real character and integrity. Don't worry about this complaint. It's obviously retaliation from people who got caught doing something wrong." That conversation reinforced something important about character. When you tell the truth and act with integrity, people of similar character will recognize and respect that, even when the situation is complicated. But they weren't finished trying to destroy my life through false claims and coordinated harassment. Tuesday afternoon, I came home from work to find an orange sticker on my truck parked in my own driveway. Someone had called the city, claiming my vehicle was abandoned and creating a neighborhood nuisance. One phone call cleared that up, but it demonstrated the level of petty retaliation I was dealing with. Wednesday brought a call from the city about noise complaints from my address. Apparently, I was having loud parties every night that disturbed the neighbors and violated noise ordinances. I live alone and go to bed by 10 p.m. most nights. Another completely false report designed to harass me. Thursday, someone called animal control, claiming I had aggressive dogs running loose in the neighborhood and threatening other pets. I don't own any animals. Another waste of city resources based on malicious lies. The pattern was crystal clear. When people can't legitimately attack your actions or character, they try to destroy your peace through false reports and systematic harassment. Friday brought what I consider the nuclear option. Melissa's mother, Carol, left a voicemail that crossed every possible line and entered criminal territory. "Connor, Melissa has been emotionally and financially invested in that house and your relationship for 2 years. She contributed to groceries, decorations, household maintenance, and emotional support. She deserves fair compensation for her contributions and the trauma you've caused her through this public humiliation. We're demanding $50,000 for pain and suffering and loss of residence. If you don't pay within 30 days, we're taking you to court and pursuing maximum damages." $50,000. For a woman who occasionally bought groceries while I paid the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and all utilities for the house I owned before I even met her. But Carol wasn't finished. She sent a follow-up text that elevated the situation to a clearly criminal level. "Connor, we know you make good money with your construction business. $50,000 is nothing to you, but it would help Melissa restart her life after the trauma you've caused. If you don't pay, we're going to systematically destroy your business reputation. We'll post on every review site, every social media platform, telling everyone you're abusive and unstable. We'll contact your clients and tell them you can't be trusted with their projects. Pay up or suffer the consequences of your actions." Extortion. They were attempting to extort money from me after their precious daughter cheated on me and destroyed our engagement. That's when I decided to bring in professional legal help. I hired Rebecca Chen, an attorney who specializes in defamation, harassment, and extortion cases. Her reputation in the city is legendary. She doesn't lose cases, and she doesn't tolerate people who try to manipulate the legal system for personal gain. Our first meeting was scheduled for Monday morning. I brought printed copies of every text message, voicemail, and social media communication I'd received since posting the truth about Melissa and Blake's affair. Rebecca reviewed everything methodically, taking detailed notes and occasionally shaking her head in disbelief at their escalating behavior. "Connor, they've made this incredibly easy for us from a legal perspective," she said, setting down the stack of evidence. "We have clearly documented harassment, attempted extortion, filing false police reports, and conspiracy to commit defamation. They violated multiple state and federal laws." She explained our options comprehensively. We can pursue criminal charges for the extortion attempt, civil suits for harassment and defamation, and restraining orders to stop all contact. Or we can start with cease and desist letters that clearly outline the consequences and escalate if they don't comply immediately. I chose the strategic approach. Let's start with cease and desist letters that spell out exactly what laws they've broken and what will happen if they continue. Give them one chance to stop digging their hole deeper. Rebecca smiled, not a friendly smile, but the smile of a predator who's found perfect prey. "I like clients who think strategically instead of emotionally. That approach usually gets better results." Within 48 hours, Rebecca had drafted and sent comprehensive cease and desist letters to Melissa Patterson, Brooklyn Patterson, Carol Patterson, and Vanessa Wright. The letters documented every instance of harassment, every false report, and every threatening communication. They demanded immediate cessation of all contact and clearly warned of serious legal consequences, including financial damages and possible jail time for continued violations. But we didn't stop there. Rebecca also reached out to Kennedy Morrison's divorce attorney and offered our complete cooperation in her case against Blake. Every photo, every timeline, every piece of evidence that proved Blake's extended pattern of deception and infidelity would be available to support Kennedy's position. Kennedy's attorney was thrilled to have our evidence and cooperation. Apparently, Blake had been claiming the affair was a one-time mistake and that his marriage had been troubled for years. Our comprehensive timeline proved he'd been systematically lying to his wife for months while publicly posting about family values and marital happiness. The cease and desist letters had an immediate and dramatic effect. The harassing phone calls stopped completely. The false police reports ended. The threatening messages ceased entirely, but Melissa still needed to collect her belongings from my house, and Rebecca handled that situation with surgical precision. When Melissa's family demanded immediate access to collect her possessions, Rebecca's response was legally perfect. Miss Patterson may provide a written, itemized list of personal belongings purchased with her own funds, with receipts as proof of ownership where applicable. Mr. Reynolds will pack said items and place them at the curb for collection by a neutral third party, not family members or friends. No one will be permitted on the property under any circumstances. Items not claimed within 72 hours will be donated to charity. Any attempt to enter the property will result in immediate trespassing charges. The outrage from Carol was absolutely epic. She called Rebecca's office multiple times, screaming about tenant rights and illegal eviction and theft of personal property. Rebecca calmly explained the legal reality. Melissa was never a tenant, no lease agreement, no rent payments, had no legal claim to any property in my house, and that we were being generous by allowing her to collect personal items at all. "Mrs. Patterson, your daughter has absolutely no legal standing here. She was a guest in Mr. Reynolds' home who violated his trust and destroyed their relationship through her own choices. He could legally consider everything she left behind as abandoned property. We're offering a reasonable solution for her to collect items that are legitimately hers." When Carol threatened to sue for property rights, Rebecca's response was swift and decisive. "Feel free to consult with an attorney, Mrs. Patterson. While you're at it, you might want to ask them about the criminal penalties for extortion in this state." That ended the legal threats immediately and permanently. 2 weeks later, Melissa finally provided her official list of belongings. It It was a 4-page document claiming ownership of virtually everything in my house, including items I'd owned for years before meeting her. She claimed ownership of my television, purchased 2 years before we met, kitchen appliances I'd bought in college, furniture that had belonged to my family for decades, tools from my workshop that I'd inherited from my father, artwork I'd received as gifts from relatives, even my weight set from the garage. Rebecca actually laughed out loud when she read the complete list. This is either complete delusion or an attempted theft through legal intimidation. We'll send back a revised list of items that could reasonably be considered her legitimate personal property. The revised list was much shorter and more realistic. Clothing, toiletries, a few books she'd purchased, and maybe $300 worth of decorations she'd bought for the house with her own money. I packed everything myself with care and attention. Her clothes went into boxes properly. I'm not a vindictive person who damages other people's property. But those inspirational plaques about following your truth and living authentically and never settling for less than you deserve, those may have gotten handled a bit roughly during the packing process. The irony was simply too rich to ignore completely. Saturday morning, a small moving truck arrived right on schedule. 2 professional movers loaded 6 boxes of her actual belongings while Melissa sat in her sister's car down the street, apparently too embarrassed or ashamed to supervise the process personally. The entire collection and removal process took exactly 15 minutes. 2 years of living in my house, and her legitimate belongings fit easily in 6 small boxes. Everything else had been mine all along, which made her 4-page demand list even more absurd and legally baseless. Brooklyn supervised from the car, taking photos of everything with her phone, probably hoping to find something to complain about later or use as evidence in some imaginary legal proceeding. Good luck with that. Everything was packed properly and handled professionally. The aftermath was swift, comprehensive, and completely predictable for everyone involved in this situation. Blake Morrison's life imploded completely and permanently. His company launched a full investigation after the Facebook post went viral throughout the business community and discovered he'd been systematically using business credit cards for personal expenses, including the Cabo trip and multiple client dinners that were actually romantic dates with Melissa. He was immediately terminated for fraud and theft, and the company pursued criminal charges for embezzlement of corporate funds. His professional reputation in the industry was completely destroyed, and he became unemployable in his field. His divorce from Kennedy was brutal but entirely fair. Kennedy got primary custody of the twins, the family house, substantial spousal support, and Blake was made responsible for all legal fees associated with the divorce proceedings. The comprehensive timeline and evidence we provided proved his extended pattern of deception and infidelity, which eliminated any possibility of him claiming the marriage was troubled or that Kennedy bore any responsibility for the breakdown. Kennedy's attorney told Rebecca that our evidence was absolutely crucial in securing such a favorable settlement. Blake tried to claim this was a one-time mistake during a troubled period in their marriage. Your timeline and documentation proved he'd been systematically deceiving his family for months, while publicly posting about family values and commitment. The judge was not sympathetic to his position at all. Blake is now living in a studio apartment across town, working at a call center for $12 an hour, and can only see his daughters during supervised visits every other weekend. His social media accounts are completely deleted, his reputation in the business community is permanently destroyed, and he faces potential jail time for the embezzlement charges. The consequences were severe and life-changing, but they were the direct and inevitable result of his choices. He chose to lie to his wife repeatedly. He chose to steal company funds for personal affairs. He chose to destroy his family for temporary gratification. Kennedy, meanwhile, is absolutely thriving in her new life. She continued posting fitness content and family updates, but now they show a woman who's confident, free from deception, and genuinely happy. She's been dating a pediatrician for 3 months, a man who actually deserves her integrity and loves her daughters as his own. Her recent posts show authentic happiness and peace, instead of the forced family perfection she was posting while married to a systematic liar. Melissa's consequences were equally comprehensive and permanent. The affair became major workplace gossip at her marketing firm, especially after it came out that Blake was actually a client of the company she worked for. Apparently, having romantic relationships with married clients violates company policy in spectacular fashion and reflects poorly on the firm's professional reputation. She was terminated immediately for unprofessional conduct and violation of client relationship protocols. Her boss told mutual friends that the scandal reflected poorly on the company's reputation and made other client relationships extremely awkward and uncomfortable. She's now completely unemployable in marketing locally and probably regionally. Every potential employer can easily Google her name and find the detailed story of her affair and professional misconduct. The marketing community in our city is much smaller than people realize, and everyone knows everyone else's business and reputation. She moved back in with her mother, Carol, who's now completely silent about that $50,000 extortion demand after getting an official visit from police detectives about the criminal charges Rebecca filed. The financial threats and harassment attempts disappeared immediately once Rebecca explained the serious criminal penalties involved in extortion cases. Melissa's social media accounts were completely deleted within a week of the post going viral. All her carefully curated influencer content and authentic living posts vanished when the reality of her authentic living became public knowledge and started attracting negative attention. But the most psychologically revealing part was a conversation I heard about secondhand through mutual friends. A colleague told me that Melissa had complained to several people that I should have warned her about the consequences of her actions before exposing the affair. The exact quote was, "Connor should have known this would ruin my life completely. If he really loved me, he would have handled it privately instead of destroying my reputation. He's just as vindictive as I was wrong." The complete lack of accountability was absolutely staggering. Even after systematically destroying our relationship, lying for months, and cheating with a married father, she still couldn't take genuine responsibility for her choices. In her distorted perspective, the problem wasn't her behavior. It was my response to her behavior. Some people are fundamentally incapable of personal responsibility, self-reflection, or genuine accountability for their actions. 6 months later, my life is exactly where it should be and better than it's ever been. The house feels like mine again, really mine, not shared with someone who was secretly planning escape routes and exit strategies. I redecorated completely, removing every trace of her influence and creating a space that reflects my actual values and preferences. New paint, new furniture, new energy throughout. The space feels clean, honest, and authentic again, free from the underlying toxicity of deception and lies. The $12,000 I'd invested in wedding deposits was mostly unrecoverable, but honestly, that represents the cheapest education in human nature and relationship dynamics I've ever received. Better to lose $12,000 than spend decades married to someone capable of that level of systematic deception and betrayal. I've been dating Taylor for 4 months now. She's a nurse practitioner who actually means what she says, pays her own way, and demonstrates consistency between her words and actions. When she says she needs space to study for certification exams, she actually means space to study. When she says she's working late at the hospital, she's actually at the hospital. When she makes plans with me, she keeps them. The difference in relationship stress and mental energy is absolutely remarkable. When you're with someone genuinely honest, you don't spend mental energy wondering what they're really doing or who they're really with. You don't analyze their text messages for hidden meanings or worry about why they're working late again. Trust, it turns out, is the foundation that makes everything else in a relationship possible and enjoyable. Some of Melissa's extended family sent messages about forgiveness and moving on. Her aunt messaged me directly. "Connor, Melissa has learned her lesson from this experience. She's really sorry and misses what you two had together. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her? Family is important, and she was almost family to you." My response was direct and final. She was supposed to be family to me. Instead, she chose to betray that family bond for a vacation with a married man. The consequences she's facing are the natural and inevitable result of her choices, not my actions. I exposed the truth. She created the truth to be exposed. I blocked them all permanently. Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting ongoing disrespect, rebuilding relationships with people who've proven they can't be trusted, or pretending that serious violations of trust never happened. Looking back with complete clarity, the most important realization is this: that text asking for space was the best thing that ever happened to me in this relationship. It revealed exactly who Melissa really was before I married her, and locked myself into a lifetime of wondering if I could trust my wife. Imagine if I discovered this systematic deception after marriage, after buying a house together, after having children together. Imagine the complexity of divorce proceedings, custody battles, property division, and explaining to innocent children why daddy and mommy don't live together anymore. Instead, I learned the truth when the consequences were manageable, and the escape was clean, complete, and permanent. The space she asked for gave me the emotional and physical distance I needed to see the situation with complete objectivity. When you're living with someone and sharing daily life, it's remarkably easy to miss concerning patterns or rationalize away red flag behaviors. The physical and emotional distance created by her space request allowed me to observe her actions objectively when she thought no one was watching. And Blake? He learned that actions have consequences that extend far beyond the moment of decision. You can't systematically destroy your family with lies and deception and expect no fallout when the truth inevitably emerges. You can't betray your wife and children and expect them to stick around when they discover who you really are underneath the public facade. The truth has a way of surfacing eventually, no matter how carefully people try to hide it. Lies require constant maintenance, energy, and coordination to sustain. Eventually, the weight of deception becomes too heavy to carry effectively, and the truth breaks through. I just helped it along by refusing to participate in the cover-up or protect them from the natural consequences of their choices. Some people called my actions vindictive and unnecessarily public. Others called me a hero for protecting an innocent wife and family. I call myself a man who respects boundaries, values truth, and protects his peace of mind. When someone tells you they need space, take them seriously and give them exactly what they ask for. Sometimes the space they're requesting reveals exactly who they are when they think no one is watching or holding them accountable. Don't chase people who don't want you around. Don't beg for relationships with people who don't value them. And when someone shows you exactly who they are through their actions and choices, believe them the first time, instead of making excuses or hoping they'll change. The lesson isn't about revenge, punishment, or getting even. It's about truth, consequences, and personal integrity. When people violate trust and destroy relationships through their choices, those actions naturally create consequences. Protecting those people from experiencing the consequences of their choices only enables more destructive behavior and teaches them that deception is acceptable. Kennedy Morrison deserved to know the truth about her husband's character and behavior patterns. Their daughters deserve to grow up understanding that integrity matters and that deception carries real costs. I deserve to know who I was really engaged to before making permanent commitments that would affect the rest of my life. Truth serves everyone's long-term interests and well-being, even when it's painful and uncomfortable in the short term. 3 fundamental lessons every man should understand. First, when someone asks for space, honor their request completely. Their words reveal their priorities, and your response reveals your character. Second, truth serves everyone's long-term interests, even when it's painful initially. Short-term discomfort from facing reality prevents years of building on false foundations. Third, your response to betrayal defines you more than their betrayal defines them. Choose integrity over revenge, truth over comfort, self-respect over false peace. Some people will always choose the easy path over the right path. Some people will always prioritize their immediate gratification over their long-term commitments and responsibilities. Some people will always blame others for the consequences of their own poor decisions and destructive choices. You can't change those people or fix their character flaws, but you can choose not to enable their behavior or absorb the costs of their decisions. The most important thing I learned? When people show you who they are through their actions, believe them completely. When they ask for space, respect them enough to give it to them permanently. And when they prove they don't deserve your trust, respect yourself enough to act accordingly. The bottom line? Don't chase people who don't want you around. Don't beg for relationships with people who don't value them. When someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time instead of hoping they'll become someone different. Your peace of mind is worth more than anyone's opinion of how you choose to protect it. Your integrity is worth more than maintaining relationships with people who have none. Boundaries aren't suggestions or starting points for negotiation. They're requirements for healthy relationships. If this story resonated with you and changed how you think about boundaries and self-respect, hit that like button and subscribe for more real talk about relationships, personal integrity, and standing up for yourself. Remember, the right person won't need space from you to figure out if they want to be with you. Stay strong, respect yourself, and never let anyone treat you like a backup plan while they explore their other options. The right person will choose you consistently, not just when it's convenient. Until next time, this is Connor reminding you that when people show you who they are, believe them. When they ask for space, give them permanent space. And when they prove they don't deserve your trust, have enough self-respect to act accordingly. Peace.